Hi guys, this is Dr. J here, and in this video we are going to talk about a new method that we could use to prepare alkyl halides. And in this method, in order to prepare alkyl halides, we are going to use alcohols as our reactants. So when treating alcohols in order to achieve alkyl halides or in order to prepare alkyl halides, there are two methods involved, okay? Especially the simplest method to make alkyl halides using alcohols is to treat alcohols using a strong acid such as HCl, HBr or HI. So the simplest way to synthesize alkyl halides using alcohols is to treat alcohols with a protic acid such as HCl, HBr or HI. Okay, but here's the thing. Okay, so this reaction is very simple. Okay, the OH group will be replaced by the halogen from the acid. Okay, so this looks very simple. Okay, but if you consider the reactivity of this alcohol, if this reaction, if you consider the reactivity of this reaction, the reactivity changes depending on the type of alcohol you have. Okay, if you have a tertiary alcohol, which means when you consider the alcohol carbon, when you consider the alcohol carbon, if that carbon has no hydrogens, we call it a tertiary alcohol. So if you use a tertiary alcohol, the reaction rate is going to be very high, or in other words, the reactivity is going to be very high. But when you use secondary or primary alcohols, the reactivity is going to be significantly lower than tertiary alcohol. So whenever you are using secondary or primary alcohols, and of course even methanol, the reactivity is going to be significantly lower than tertiary alcohols. So this particular reaction where treating alcohols with an acid such as HCl, HBr or HI is mostly suitable when you have a tertiary alcohol. So this reaction is mostly suitable when you have a tertiary alcohol, which means the alcohol carbon has no hydrogens. All these R groups are going to be hydrocarbon groups, okay? So what if we have a secondary alcohol or a primary alcohol, right? So this particular reaction is mostly suitable for tertiary alcohol. So what if you have a primary or a secondary alcohol? So if you have a primary or secondary alcohol, the better way to synthesize alkyl halide is to use reagents such as SOCl2 or PBr3. So by using these specialized reagents such as SOCl2 or PBr3, you can replace the OH group with a chlorine or a bromine, depending on the reagent that you use. Okay, so that is something that you have to remember at this level. So of course in a later chapter we will learn why we have to use these specialized reagents and why HCl or HBr will not work. It is all depending on the mechanism. Okay, just to clarify, okay, so if you have a tertiary alcohol, you will use a reagent like HCl or HBr, okay, or HI to generate an alkyl halide from the alcohol. But if you have a primary or secondary one, if this is a secondary alcohol right here, so if you have a primary or secondary alcohol, in order to generate an alkyl halide or synthesize an alkyl halide, you will have to use a specialized reagents such as thionyl chloride for chlorine or phosphorus tribromide for bromine. Okay, phosphorus tribromide for bromine. So with that, let's see if we could do this worked example. Okay, so I want you to pause the video now and then see if you could do this worked example. Okay, so in a second I will explain you how to get this. Alright, in this worked example, I want you to prepare the following alkyl halide from the corresponding alcohol. So let's look at the alkyl halide that we have. The alkyl halide that we have is a tertiary alkyl halide. So in order to synthesize a tertiary alkyl halide, you will need a tertiary alcohol, which is this one right here. Okay, so all you need to do is to substitute this OH group with a chloride group, right? So the good thing is that, or the thing is that in this reaction you are going to need a tertiary alcohol, which means you can easily use HCl and synthesize this particular alkyl halide. Okay, so that will be your answer. Okay, that will be your answer. So here is your formal solution, but let me give you a couple of other questions. Okay, let me give you a couple of other questions and see if you could do them by yourself. All right, so let's say you have an alkyl halide like this. Here is an alkyl halide, sorry, alcohol. Here is one alcohol and here is another alcohol. All right, if you want to get the corresponding alkyl halide from these alcohols, which means here is one and here is the other. If you want to get the corresponding alkyl halides, what type of reagents will you use? So take a second and see if you could come up with appropriate reagents. All right, okay, let's talk about the answer. So the first alcohol that you have is actually a primary alcohol. How do I know that? Because this carbon right here has two hydrogens. Two or more hydrogens means it's a primary alcohol. So when you have a primary alcohol, you can't use HBr and get this, right? So you have to use a specialized reagent such as PBr3. All right, so that will be the reagent. So in the next question, what I have here is again a primary alcohol. This is also a primary alcohol. So if you want to convert a primary alcohol into an alkyl halide, the reagent that you will need in here is SOCl2. How about this one? How about this alcohol? How do you get the alkyl halide from this one? Okay, so now once again you categorize your alcohol. So this one right here is a secondary alcohol. This one right here is a secondary alcohol. So once again, if you have a primary or a secondary alcohol, you need to use SOCl2 if you need to get that particular product, right? But of course, if you have a tertiary alcohol, something like this, here is a tertiary alcohol. If you want to get the alkyl halide from this one, then it would be a little bit easier. You simply have to use what? In here you will use HBr. Okay, so that is how you do it. You always categorize your alcohol and then you will determine the reagent that you need to use. If it is primary or secondary, you will use either SOCl2 or PBr3. If it is a tertiary alcohol, you will use HBr, HCl or HI. Okay, with that I'm going to conclude this video. If you have any questions, just let me know, guys. Okay, you guys have a good one. Take care.